With art and with any form of art, I would say, anything creative, the way you can touch people's life with creative art, it's just beyond what one can buy. I feel that a lot of people have this misconception that yoga should be done at the end of your life when you're old, when you're retired. If I have to define yoga, I wouldn't say it's something done on the yoga mat. It's something beyond that. It's a way of living. It helped me connect to my deeper calling. When you're creating art for people, it's very important you become responsible. When one realizes that your job doesn't define your existence or your purpose, I think it's quite liberating in itself. Right now, we're living in a world where opportunities are just in abundance. Okay, it's just crazy how much opportunity is there in the world today. You should have some kind of a practice, maybe a simple one in your everyday life, in such a way that you make your well-being your topmost priority.
Hello and welcome to the Miraculous Being series. I'm your host and self-mastery coach Shweta Shivranun, and this is a show where we discover, learn and implement lessons from others' life journeys. Others who, I believe, epitomize miraculous in its truest spirit. Individuals who live life to the fullest, who worked hard on themselves to reach where they are and are passionate in what they do. So today we have a very special guest, someone I had the fortune to meet in Mysore and experience her work in person. We have Lakshmi Ambari. Lakshmi Ambari is a corporate professional turned artist based out of Bangalore. Lies Thana, founded by Lakshmi, merges digital art and graphic design. Formerly a biomedical engineer and a business analyst at Accenture, Lakshmi transitioned into being a full-time artist and designer, driven by a passion to merge art with the spiritual sciences. Her studio, Lies Thana, means a place of dissolution in Sanskrit, reflects her exploration of Indic philosophy and yoga through creative work. Published poet and author of Moon, Snakes, Love, Lakshmi's art is imbued with the cultural richness and spiritual essence. She is also a dedicated educator, inspiring and empowering aspiring artists through workshops and online tutorials. She shares her extensive knowledge and passion for digital artistry, fostering creativity and technical excellence within the digital art community and beyond. Her commitment to her craft and her desire to share the profound beauty of Bharat's culture has earned her a respected place in the art world. Thank you so much, Lakshmi, for being a part of the Miraculous Being show. It's an honor, and I'm so thrilled to hear your journey.
Thank you so much, Shweta, for having me on the show. Initially, I know I was a little reluctant to talk about my journey because I always thought, I had to have a complete story, a complete inspiring story to tell people. But then after the conversation with you is when I realized that it doesn't have to be like that. It can be a story in progress. Um, and because we're all navigating our own journeys, it only makes sense that, somebody comes in, a fellow traveler, and shares something, and it could mean something to somebody else. So I'm very happy to have had that conversation with you and very happy to be here as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lakshmi. And I think we specialize in interviewing work in progress humans. And I think genuinely life is a work in progress. We can never probably complete that evolution. Somehow life is that journey towards that evolution, right? So I'm so thrilled. And yes, I really feel that we never quite know who needs to hear what we have to share. So
That's
thank you for coming into the show and having this conversation. And I always start this conversation by asking my guests to share what their pivotal moments were in their self transformation journey and what helped them navigate those moments. So, if you had to pick a few moments from your journey so far, what would they be?
I think I'll have to go back to when I was a child, probably around the age of 5 or 6. I had an aunt I was having a conversation with, and she looked at my hands. And so I have so many lines on the palm of my hands. And she looked at it and she said, "Oh, you're going to have a very difficult life, and there's going to be so many obstacles in your life." And as a child, that left so much of an imprint on me. And stuck with me. I was very self-conscious about my hands, and it was only in the last, I think, few years that I realized that it's not really about appearances, right? It's, a tool could have so much potential and power to inspire and transform, right? So when I realized this, it was a very liberating experience for me, And when growing up, I knew that her words weren't entirely wrong. Uh, I did face a lot of things because I moved from Dubai to India. I did my entire schooling in Dubai, and then there was a sudden shift to India where I did my engineering, and that was a major culture shock for me. Relearning so many things about Bharat itself. There was so much that came on my way, and interacting with the people here, it's a completely different mindset. I grew up in, and then the shift that happened here. So there was a lot of things that I had to navigate, so many obstacles on my way to a point where I thought, I'm done with my life. It came to that point. I think that's when, the whole seeking started. And I wanted to know, okay, is there something beyond what we see, right? Something beyond the immediate physical, what we see. So my whole quest, even though it was there since childhood, I think solidified at this point in my life. And that's when yoga and meditation really happened to me,
Mm.
It was around the same time that I came to Bangalore to do my, I got recruited in a corporate. And I knew that this wasn't really the place for me. And this is not something that I want to do for the rest of my life. That was certain. But, you give into society and you think that, oh, this is the way to do things, right? And I think I stayed in my corporate world also because I had such a great team and really fabulous people working with me and stuff. So I think I stayed there because of that. But it was during that COVID period, the 4 years. I mean, the two, especially the initial 2 years that we had, and we were working from home. That's when I actually took the time off to really explore art.
Mm. Mm.
Art has always been there since childhood. Okay, you can ask my parents. I was always painting. I was always drawing. I would always sit with my stationery, papers, and colors and everything. It was just a part of me. But
Mm.
somewhere along the way, I lost it, and I came back to it when I discovered yoga and meditation. So that was a very, a transforming point, that those COVID years, I would say, because it led me to establish Layasthana as you know it, and to where I
Mm.
am today. So I think if I have to put three major points, I think it would be these 3 points in my life so far.
Yeah. So powerful. Thank you for sharing. And I love how it was both your geographical, physical shifts and also the mental shifts, right? Where
Thank you.
the transitions happened in both ways.
Yeah.
And you made that shift recently in terms of moving from that being an IT professional to being an artist. What prompted you to make that switch?
It wasn't obviously planned overnight. It was a gradual awakening to something that really was responding or resonated with me. So, like I said, there was always a disconnect with my IT job. I would be there, but it didn't align with the core of who I was. The whole logic of it, the problem solving, the analysis, all that I enjoyed. And but I always needed a space to create and express, and I would try and find that within the office, premises. And my team was so supportive, and I really bow down to that, because they always gave me the opportunity to create a presentation. So for me, that was like little things to fulfill, my creative interest. They always give me a
Yeah.
chance for that. Um, but it was around that time also where I started exploring the philosophy and spirituality, and I knew that something beyond this, especially the Indian traditions. Okay, now because I come from a place where I wasn't really exposed to it. right? We were confined to small apartments and everything was just taken care of. Everything was so mechanical and precise. But in India, it was a chaos, beautiful chaos, I would say. And that led me to find out and explore more about the tradition here. And I started exposing myself to so many books and so many talks and lectures and many things. And I realized that okay, if I have to express this in a different kind of a format, in a little more modern context, to the people who are not really, and you're swaying away from it right now. That's what I'm saying. So if you have to present it in a different way, how do I do that? So that quest, I think, brought me to creating art in a little more different style, and I started exploring the folk arts of India, and so many things that I learned in the last few years since I set up Layasthana. So I think it was a gradual shift, Shweta. I don't think it's happened. It was always been there as in the back of my mind and my being that I want to do something
Yeah.
creative. Um,
Yeah.
so I also wanted to live a life that I don't look back and regret doing. Uh,
Mm.
it's, IT is a job like that is not something I want to do for the rest of my life for sure. So I think
Yeah.
that was a good decision at the right time that I made, and I don't regret
Mm.
any of that.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And I'm always amazed at how it's never one point, right? I think Bollywood kind of conditions us to think as though, there's this one light bulb moment where everything changes. But in life, it's always very subtle and very gradual, and they kind of add up. And I often tell this even with my clients that if you're not noticing those subtle shifts, you're missing out so much in life because it doesn't come out in bold capital letters in terms of this is what you should do. It's very little, those nudges, if I can call it that way. And I love how you articulated that, one step at a time, it kind of happened over a period. And I think the name that you've chosen to house your creativity, Layasthana, which means dissolution, is also very fascinating.
Yeah.
What prompted you to choose that name?
Okay, so the word Laya Sthana is a combination of two words, okay, Laya and Sthana.
Mm,
Laya means dissolution. So the whole concept of Srishti, Sthiti, Samhara, or Brahma,
mm,
Vishnu, Rudra, Maheshwara, Shiva, the
mm,
Trinity that you call. So the last step is actually Laya or dissolution or destruction, right? And
mm,
destruction
mm.
does not be in a negative, you know, context. It can be in a beautiful way. You're dissolving into something, into
Yeah.
some nothingness, to be born again or to create again, or so the whole cycle that
Mm,
Sarah, is based on these three concepts. So the word Laya really stuck to me. Laya is
mm,
also, if you know Carnatic music, it is a very important concept there. The rhythm and talam, everything relates to the word Laya. And
mm,
there's always an influence of music in my art. Okay. So somehow it just fits so perfectly. It wasn't planned, Shweta. I really didn't,
mm,
I wasn't uh, I wasn't stuck on, okay, I want this concept. It's just that I came across this word and I immediately knew that this is what I want. This seems so perfect for what I'm doing. And I want it to be a place of dissolution. I want it to be a place of dissolution, not just for me as a creator. Um, I want it to resonate with the audience also. And at least for a moment, they forget their thoughts when they see the art
mm.
or anything. I want that space to be created for them as well. So in that context, Layasthana fit in so perfectly. Um, yeah, it's a. I think it's a perfect name to embody this philosophy that I have. Yep.
Yeah. And I love how you just lit up when you started talking about this because I can see the resonance is so deep. And having seen and purchased your artwork, I definitely agree that the dissolution happens both sides. It is, uh, I think the intention is being fulfilled
Thank you.
in terms of that. Yeah. Amazing. And often when people think about self discovery or self transformation, there is a feeling of it being very effortless and, very smooth and almost an overnight transition that people wake up and are a different person, right? But no journey is really that rosy, and it's always filled with its own thorns, obstacles, roadblocks, and challenges. So curious that. Uh, what were some of the most difficult things you had to encounter in your journey, and how did you manage to, or rather, what helped you navigate them?
Uh, Obviously, like you said, every journey has its own share of struggles and obstacles, and mine was definitely not no exception. Okay, for that. The first thing that I had to break free was from this conditioning that a successful life means having a job, means having a house, means having a whatever balance in your account. That was the first step that I had to break free from, that conditioning that has been put into all of us. It's just there, inevitably.
Yeah.
So transitioning from that IT to art, and into the unknown, rather, right? Obviously, there were doubts. This whole security of IT, you get salary credited at the end of the month. Obviously, there is security in it. And with art, and with any form of art, I would say anything creative you're pursuing, obviously that security is not there. It's completely uncertain what you would get at the end of the month. Sometimes even nothing. But
Yeah.
the whole fulfillment of it, Shweta, is just unbelievable. The way you can touch people's life with creative art, it's just beyond what one can buy. That's what
Mm.
I've learned in the last few years. Um, Another obstacle was my own self doubts. Am I good enough? And it's always going to be that it's again, this is another inevitable thing. You're always comparing with somebody else, right?
Mm.
Um, Another thing that I noticed was when I initially started posting on Instagram was there was a lot of negative comments from people I don't even know. Okay, and
Mm.
it was very strange for me because it was for no reason. These are people I are complete strangers to me, and they would come and in quite abusive language, I would say, say things. And I think thanks to Instagram, there's a feature with Instagram where you can block out these things, and
Mm.
um, so it helped me mitigate this aspect. Uh,
Mm.
then I started focusing on the good parts of how art is resonating with people. So there are so many things. I mean, I'm just putting just two, three
Yeah.
small things up here, but I know on a daily basis there's a lot of things struggling, especially when you have to be an individual working. I don't have a team, as you know. It's just me. And you saw
Mm.
the workshop day, how it was just me running around with so many things.
Yeah.
You're the one. You're the one shipping it. You're the one packing everything. You're the one, taking feedback from people. So yeah, it is a difficult journey, but it's incredibly fulfilling, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Yeah. How powerful. And yeah, I think all the points that you shared were so deeply resonating in terms of rewiring the definition of success,
Yeah.
overcoming self doubt, handling criticism, right? I think in a space where we are being creators in a public forum, I think that was one of the first things that I was petrified about before the book was coming out, right? Like, your words, as long as they are in your cocoon of your head,
Yeah.
they're perfectly safe, right? But when you put it out there, then it has a life of its own. So I think, yeah, I resonated with all of those. And one practice that you spoke about right at the introduction is how yoga and meditation has been a very key part of your life. And one thing that I learned also much later in my journey was how being established in yoga first helps us act very effectively and efficiently in whatever we choose later on. And I think that's how India's culture used to be, right? That everybody first learned yoga. And once they were established, you pursue the shastras, you pursue the science, you pursue art, whatever it is, right? Because it gave you a stable foundation. And given, we spoke and you mentioned that you've been doing your sadhana for almost 9 years. Curious to say, how has being established in yoga first helped you on your journey?
Um, so if I have to define yoga, I wouldn't say it's something done on the yoga mat. It's something beyond that. It's a way of living, right? I know it's very easy to define yoga as this posture, that posture. I'm doing yoga, and people think it's a big thing, but it's not even that. It's a way of living, and it helped me connect to my deeper calling, right? Because once you're reminding yourself to act with intention and with purpose and being mindful, rather than acting impulsively. So it's shifting from this reaction to response. I think that is one of the first steps that we are taught. We're not reacting to something, we're responding to something. So that approach has brought some sense of peace to my life for sure, and helped me take decisions with much more clarity than I would have if I didn't have yoga in my life. So it also helped me enjoy the process. So it's taught me is that the process of maybe creating an artwork, and the whole focus on okay how it's going to look at the end of it, kind of just diminished. I kind of enjoy the whole process of creating it, adding colors, designing what the composition will look like, what all these things is what entertains me the most than saying what is going to come out at the end. That is not in your control anyway. It's the process. What you put in at every moment of that process is what leads to what happens in the end. So when Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that it's not about, don't focus on what the final. I think I can resonate with that now.
Mm.
And I feel that a lot of people have this misconception that yoga should be done at the end of your life when you're old, when you're retired, right?
Mm.
But it's not true. Yoga is, as a practice, when you're doing yoga, I think it's to bend your body in such a way that you will be able to sit comfortably when you want to. So the whole purpose is meditation when you're sitting and you're feeling that union within you or that yoga within you, where you're not separate from the rest of the universe. For that realization to come to you, you need to be able to sit still, right? And yoga, the practice is just trying to bend your body in ways where body is not a constraint at the end of it.
Mm.
So there are two ways to look at yoga: either as a physical posture where you're training your body, or as the unit between you and the universe, and two different things.
Yeah, yeah. How powerful. And I always like to open up and speak about things in terms of what does sadhana mean to you, right? Like you said, a lot of us have kind of equated it to the yoga on the mat, or staying in silence for 10 minutes, or something very serious and rigid. But I'm just curious, what all practices on your daily routine would you say that you consider sacred enough to be sadhana for you?
So again, sadhana in its essence is just a practice that will help you connect to a higher state of consciousness. Okay. Now, the word sadhana means a tool. It can be anything. Anything can be a sadhana. So for some people, maybe breath watching is a sadhana. For some people, just painting is a sadhana. Some people it's making music. Some people it's cooking. So anything that you can use as a tool to connect to your deeper self or to some kind of a higher dimension, that is sadhana. So it's not um, limited to a specific technique or as such. But just the conscious engagement in any kind of activity, I think that is what allows you to transcend that ordinary, right? So it's about being fully in this moment, whether that's through breath watching, breathing, or simply being aware of just sitting here and being aware of your surroundings. I think that can be sadhana enough. So in the context of my creative process, just being open to inspirations around me. Okay, so let's say I'm sitting here and I see a shadow being cast on an object. That is inspirational enough for me to come up with something. I've not really learned art per se. I'm not gone to any art classes. I don't know if you spoke about this, but this is not something that I've learned. Okay, but just the sheer observation of things around me helps me, when I sit to do a composition, all these inputs and all these observations actually helped me, right? So it's not about just learning from somebody, it's about your own. And I think that's a more powerful teacher than somebody teaching you. When it comes from your own experience, that's far more likely to stick with you than somebody telling you, right? And
Yeah.
my approach to studies has always been like this. Anyway, so observation I think this is one of the greatest sadhanas that you can do, just simply sitting and observing and, being alert. So
Yeah.
for me, the other things also, music, nature, dance, all kinds of art forms, even the smallest of the smallest details can become a tool that helps me access that higher, dimension or state of being. Especially music for me, especially Carnatic music. I can just, just sit here. It's not that I have trained years or anything. I've learned for a bit, but just the whole act of being and just listening to music can be like a very blissful state for me. So it can be like this for many people, and that can be sadhana, or that can be a tool for you, and that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah, beautiful. I love how you shared it's about consciously engaging in any activity, and anything can actually help you connect with the source. And
Exactly.
yeah, I think the power of observation. I think in our logical worlds, we've gotten so attuned to just reading and downloading
Yeah.
information from other sources that we've forgotten how to exercise our own muscle to see and experience and feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And since obviously, as an artist, I'm sure uh, you might have some process to fuel your creativity, right? So, what are some things that inspire you to create, and how do you um, have a routine that actually helps you be more creative on a regular basis?
The funny part is I don't have a routine, and I wish I had one, Shweta, to be honest. I don't have one.
Okay.
And it comes in, spurts of inspiration. And then the funny part is I would sit 6 hours and paint that and complete that painting. So
Mm.
it's very unpredictable for me. And I don't know if it is like this with other artists. I've not spoken to them, and I want to have this conversation because I don't know. It's kind of weird, and I really want to have a routine where I know a lot of people, spend some time. Writers, especially, they have dedicated time. I'm sure you know this. You know this, and
Yeah.
you have a dedicated.
I also try and fail in having that exact time routine to say that this is where I write. I keep telling myself that saying, okay, 5 to 6 every morning I'll write. It never happens. But yeah, it's always inspiration when it comes. And when it comes, you can't stop, right? It's almost like a tap that's open.
Correct.
As long as it's coming, you just keep flowing with it.
Absolutely. So then I would go without food. I would go without sleep, if I get into that zone. And then that's why, it's very difficult for people around me to understand what is going with this girl. And, oftentimes they think I've lost it. Anyway, so creative process, I don't have any as such, but just the idea of keeping myself open to my surroundings. And also, sadhana, obviously, there are certain moments in my practice itself where, there'll be some spark of an idea. And then I'll complete
Mm-hmm.
my sadhana and then go back to, okay, developing that. Also, especially what I've noticed is when I'm in a state of relaxation is when these ideas come to me the most than when I'm really stressed out and stuff. So that's one thing. And also to be in this relaxed state, it's the practice, it's the sadhana. So it's like this cyclical thing that one depends on the other.
Yeah.
What else? I don't have a personal Shweta. I think anything music really helps me. So what I try to do with music is when I'm listening to maybe a ragam, I try and
Mm.
see the patterns of this ragam, how I can superimpose it on my artwork. Okay. Now, this is something that I've been constantly trying to do. I don't know how successful I am. I get a lot of comments on Instagram saying, "Oh, you choose such apt music for your artwork." I keep getting a lot of these comments, which is nice because I do spend a lot of time trying to do it. So,
Right.
so music definitely, and temple architecture, dance forms, dance postures. I love observing people who are in the creative field already, especially dancers and musicians. I draw a lot of inspiration from them. So I don't have a well defined structure or
Yeah.
process as such. It's just how it feels and how it flows.
Yeah. Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Honestly, I think we all read about all these artists having a very specific routine, right? And I always often wonder, like, is that really possible? But glad to know that there are other mortals also equally trying to figure this process out. And I think there was one perspective that you had, which I felt was very important to actually have a conversation around, given how much we do art therapy and those kind of things today, right? And you had a very interesting perspective about the responsibility as an artist. And I'd love to hear you share your views on that when more of us are trying to engage with the arts.
Yeah. So art as a therapy is growing in the last, I don't know, few years. It's been growing very much actually. And I'm with this concept of art as therapy because it is therapeutic for sure. There is no doubt about it. When there's as human beings, there's always a need to express, right? And when it doesn't get fulfilled in many other ways, maybe in a communication, the natural instinct is to store it within yourself, right? And art, if you see, even as a child, even as somebody who's just learned to pick up a pencil or a pen, first thing they do is make some scribbles or art, right? So this is the first method of expressing, which we lose through the years. It goes away. But when you're trying to express again as an adult, there's a lot of things that are stored within you that also gets clearer. It's like catharsis, okay? But the important point is that when you're creating art for people, okay, it's very important you become responsible because you don't want to be necessarily selling a piece of catharsis, to somebody to keep in their house, right? Artworks carry energy, and I've been saying this for so many years now, and this is something that I learned from Osho, that art is or any kind of art form carries energy. So what you are doing as a creator, as an artist, you're kind of superimposing your own energy into it, right? And it carries that. So it's very important that you come from a space that is joyful and pleasant, um, rather than from misery or with trying to basically catharsis or art therapy. So the art therapy places, please do not sell it to people. Please, be responsible, and you want to create a joyful world. You don't want to spread your, all these things subtly carry some kind of energy. I'm sure you know about this, Shweta. So it's very important that you be responsible in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. And thank you for bringing that out. I think uh, the more subtle these energies are, the harder we feel that, we think it can be discounted, but they make so much of a difference in terms of how it's being received, right? And I think it was Osho only who had said, if I'm not wrong, in one of the talks that I heard, where he said that creativity needs to be a process where it overflows, right? That it is almost like an abundance from you, and it's like an extension and an expansion of who you are,
Yes.
right? And when it comes from that space, it doesn't drain you also,
Sure.
right? Because it is completely an overflow and it's just that coming out of you. And I love what you said about actually being very responsible of your own mind space and your own energy, especially when you're creating, I think, any product or service, right? I feel that even if I were to go into my journaling workshops, if I'm not in the right energetic space, I think it'll actually do more harm than good,
Yes.
right?
Music,
And
especially. I think I spoke about this in some other talk where music, people who create very jarring kind of music, the kind of impact it leaves on you, right? You listen to pleasant
yeah,
music and, you listen to these jarring. Some people enjoy it. I don't know. But I mean, to each their own, obviously. But, it leaves an imprint on you, some kind of energetic impact, you know?
True, true. Yeah, absolutely. And I have a request since you are a published poet and an author. Would you be open to reading a few lines or your favorite poem for us?
Okay, so I thought about this, and
Hmm.
it's very difficult to articulate this, so this is going to be a little complicated answer.
Sure.
And I may even come across as, privileged, or, I may look like I have some kind of imposter syndrome when I say this.
Hmm.
But when I create something, it's not really my doing, okay? So the
Hmm.
practices that I've held so important in the last so many years of my life hold so much significance to me, and I have deep gratitude for it and reverence too. And I don't think it's on my own merit that I create. Okay, rather it feels that I'm just being. I hate to use these words, but being a channel to something which is beyond me. Okay,
Hmm.
I'm
Hmm.
so um, in so much gratitude for being able to do this. And that comes only because of my practices. And anybody can tap into this. I'm not saying that, oh, I have this exclusive right on it. And everybody, that's
Yeah.
the beauty of it. You do your practices and anybody can tap into this, right? So, so anyway, so I'm trying to channel this, whatever it is. I don't know what it is, but I'm trying to access that and being a channel through my artwork, this mode of expression that I've chosen, artwork. So if others are able to feel and feel something or resonate with it, I think it's their own ability to connect with that, higher dimension. It's not me. It's really not.
Hmm.
And it sounds like an imposter syndrome, and
Hmm.
it sounds so
Yeah.
esoteric, right, to be saying such.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to.
Yeah.
This is the only way I can explain it right now. So in that, if there's a poem that captures this sentiment perfectly, I think it's this which I'm going to share with you now. It's a very short
Sure.
poem. It's called Beyond. Okay, and it starts like this. O world, be fooled not by the music of my colors. Don't be awestruck by the poetry of my words. Fall in love not with the strokes of my paintbrush, O world, but do taste the fragrance of it all, for it comes from a space that's alien, to know the fragrance of the beyond.
Wow.
Yes. So,
How powerful. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know how else to articulate this. And it sounds
Hmm.
weird also for some, I'm sure, but
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I think when I made the transition from being the logic driven corporate banker
right.
to all the things that I do in being miraculous, also, it was very hard because um, you can't really articulate some experiences, no matter how, language kind of falls short. Um, and it pains me to say that as a writer, but it is the truth that even words have its limitations. And I love what you shared about just taste the fragrance and experience it for yourself, maybe.
No. And the best
Yeah.
part is it's accessible to anybody who's willing to seek and who's willing to invest in that. And it is
Yeah.
a huge investment, but the returns of it is much higher than what you invest also. So I would
Absolutely.
I
Yeah.
would recommend everyone to taste this for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that um, just that experiencing that quietness of the mind for a fraction of a second, I think, is so powerful. Yeah, again, no words, but it has to be experienced to know that just how much spaciousness can be there from just that tiny fragment of a moment.
Yes.
But beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that poem and also for the context, right, from where you create. And I think that is what really inspired me also in the sense that how sacred a process creation is for you. And, it comes from a very deep space of authenticity, which is what resonated for me in your artwork too. So I think really inspired, if I can say that.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. And one last question, right? I can see that we are on the time. So if you had any message for, say, professionals who are feeling disengaged or dissatisfied in their corporate jobs and not quite sure, right? One common thing that I often hear from, the community in Being Miraculous is that I know this is not it, but I don't know what is, right?
Yes.
Any message that you would have for listeners who are probably in that discovery phase?
I think, you should, when one realizes that your job doesn't define your existence or your purpose, right? Once you realize that, I think it's quite liberating in itself. And if you feel disconnected, I think it's a sign for you to take a step back, take some time off maybe, and explore something deeper within yourself. So take time to reflect what really excites you, and see if this fulfillment is beyond the titles that you have or your paychecks. If that is a true calling for you, I'm sure you'll be able to recognize that. But for that, you need to take some time off and see and look within yourself. See, right now we're living in a world where opportunities are just in abundance. Okay, it's just crazy how much opportunity is there in the world today, right? So whether you take this plunge into something creative or something that is not what society defines as successful, like I said, I think you just need to trust that the change is possible. So don't be afraid to step out of this comfort zone. I know it's so difficult, and breaking free of that whole security, it's quite difficult. But I think I mentioned this in the beginning also. It's incredibly fulfilling as well. So I would say take this time off to reflect on what you want to do. But above all, I think you should have some kind of, a practice, maybe a simple one in your everyday life, in such a way that you make your well-being your topmost priority. So, and once you set that as your priority, I think everything else falls into place, and then everything that you do is nothing but graceful. So I think it's also important while you explore other opportunities is to establish yourself in some kind of a practice. It can be a simple one, but once you do that, it's quite empowering.
How powerful! Thank you for sharing. I think that's a very easy way to think about it. That you keep your well-being at your center and see what practices actually enable that. And like you said, everything else that comes out of it then is a graceful endeavor.
Correct.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Lakshmi. I think I truly enjoyed our conversation and the energy that you bring into the space. Thank you so much for sharing so honestly, authentically, and vulnerably. Truly, truly grateful.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for the fun. You had a
Thank you.
conversation. Thank you.